Saddle up, partners, because it may be chilly in New England, but things are about to heat up. I'm not talking about old man winter packing it up early. I'm talking about a dish that's guaranteed to warm you down to your spurs, and that's my smoking hot cowboy stew. Cowboy stew is an old school dish that's straight from the Lonestar state. It combines different cuts of meat, stewing vegetables, heat, sweet, and smoke. It's the perfect meal for this time of year, and it's simple to make, so let's get cooking. So while some of the ingredients of this particular type of stew might be unique to it, the technique is still very much the same. So we're gonna get started by putting in a little bit of oil and some chopped onion. Now some large diced poblano pepper. That is on the very much the lower side of the heat spectrum. Very, very mild. But again, cut a little bit larger for the stew. Now once those peppers and onions start to break down, we're gonna go in with some chopped garlic. Not too soon on a chopped garlic. That might burn before the peppers and onions are ready. Quick saute on the garlic. I'm gonna go in with some corn. This is just freshly shucked off the cob. Give it a quick stir, and then we're gonna go in with some tomato. Now tomato has a lot of moisture, so that's gonna release into this, and it's gonna slow the caramelization process. So you buy yourself a little bit of time. Give it a quick mix. Let's give it a quick season. Let's go in with some fresh cracked pepper. Let's go in with some kosher salt. And now we're gonna remove all of these vegetables from in here so that when we add liquid and steak and meat and everything delicious for this stew, these don't overcook and turn to mush. Let's start to go in with some meat. I've got some ground beef here. Typically with stews, you would see tougher cuts of meat, things that need to break down for a while. But this is a quick stew, so you can move it right along. Now I've got some chopped up ribeye, which is gonna add a massive amount of flavor. Now this does need to break down a little bit, but I cut it in super small pieces, so even the 20, 30 minutes you're gonna let this simmer is gonna take care of business. Of course, you gotta season as you go. A little salt, a little pepper, the more the merrier. And then we're gonna let that simmer for about 5 to 8 minutes until everything is pretty much cooked through. Once those are cooked through, we're gonna go in with some sausage. I'm using kielbasa. Believe it or not, kielbasa is very common when you're doing cowboy stew. It's a cooked, smoked sausage, but we still wanna brown it. We still wanna render it, get all that fat and smoke and flavor in there. As if there's not enough in there, we're gonna go with some bacon, all right? That is smoky, and you gotta have a little bit more pork in there, so why not let it be bacon? Now, I kind of par-cooked the bacon. When you're stewing, you want everything to complete at the same time. So sometimes, you can do a little pre-cook like I did on the bacon. Okay, now that we've seen a lot of the solid ingredients, we've got to start to go with a little bit of wet ingredients. So I'm gonna put some crushed tomato in here. Let that tomato even caramelize just a little bit. We want a nice dark stew here. Now, we don't want it to be too thick, so we're gonna loosen that up with some broth. I'm using chicken broth, which I think is nice and neutral. Now be careful, because you don't want it to be too thin. Stews are, by nature, very, very hearty. Now, we don't want this to taste like tomato sauce, red sauce, but we gotta add some flavors that are gonna bring it down to the south. So I'm gonna go in with some cumin. I love cumin. Use a little bit more than you even think you're gonna need. Now, smoked paprika. Very, very, very critical ingredient here. Don't get hot smoked paprika, because you don't want it to be too spicy. Just a little smoked paprika is gonna go a long way. Okay, one of the stars of the show, a little bit more smoke. We're putting in chopped chipotle peppers. If you're breaking out the can, which I highly recommend using the canned chipotle peppers, you want maybe 1, 2 peppers most, depending on how much you like your heat. All right, let's mix in those spices. Now, it still has a little bit of a red color to it, and we've put in a lot of heat. To balance that, we're gonna go in with some sweet. So I've got some brown sugar. You can see that there's a lot of liquid in here, so let's start to go back in with our vegetables. We have those caramelized poblano peppers, onions, tomato, corn, garlic, big flavor. Now, I've got some beans. I'm putting in some white beans here. You can use any kind of bean you want. Black eyed pea would work, pinto beans would work, but I'm going in with some white beans. Little beans in this cowboy stew. And no stew is complete without potatoes. So I've got some Yukon Golds right here. I par cooked these. We were talking a little bit before about the bacon being par cooked, potatoes par cooked, salted water. Give it a little last minute seasoning, a little more salt. Salt is critical. We got to keep enhancing these flavors. Pepper, critical. Adds a little bit of spice. Mix it up. Gonna let it simmer just for a minute, and since everything in here is pretty much cooked, and I always love to add a fresh element, I'm gonna go with some green onion. So fresh green onion on the finish. That is gonna add a little bit of bite, a little bit of zip, a little bit of color. Mix it up, grab your ladle, and boom, there's your cowboy stew. Well, that's it for me, you bandits. I'm off to ride off into the sunset. So until we meet again, you keep on cooking. Yeehaw!